Are you new at Monster Hunter Wilds? Have you just picked a great sword and you're confused? Are you tired of this happening to you? Fret not, my friend, as someone with an unhealthy obsession with a big number stick will guide you through the Forbidden Lands. A little disclaimer before starting the video. I am not a theory crafter and I don't know if many of these mechanics are still applicable in Wilds, but they were in World and Rise, so I will share all of this information based on that. It hasn't been that long since the game launched, so if something is wrong, I will do an update video. Before any fancy website explanations, we will start with the basics. The Great Sword is a sword that is great. Okay, maybe not this basic. There are 3 types of raw damage in Monster Hunter: cut, blunt, and freaking 50 caliber round damage, also known as ammo or shot damage. The Great Sword uses mainly slashing damage, so that means it can sever tails and other unworldly appendixes. Cut damage means it cannot stun monsters if you repeatedly hit them in the noggin, however, unlike the hammer. It can deal blunt damage though, soon as that we will later discuss excessively. Oh boy, we sure are going to talk about the shoulder tackle. So, now we know what type of damage we deal, but how do we apply it? Well, this will be experience and knowledge of every monster hit zones. We will not dive very deep in the damage formula, as I myself am not 100% sure how it is implemented in Wilds yet, but we will use prior games as reference. The damage number shown in the weapon is in fact a lie. It's a bloated representation of the general damage of a weapon type. For example, the Great Sword is 4.8, for the Insect Glaive is 3.1, for the Sword Shield is 1.4, so on and so forth. So if we get a Great Sword that has 912 damage, we divide it by 4.8, we get 190 raw damage. But for an Insect Glaive that has 589 damage, we divide it by 3.1 and we get 190 raw damage. But the GS deals much more damage than the IG, you might say. Random person I just made up that questions the exact thing I'm about to discuss. And it's true, the Great Sword has bigger numbers than the Insect Glaive overall. Let's do the motion values of each attack and the aforementioned hit zones of each monster. We also are not going to dig very much into this topic, but pretty much every attack in Monster Hunter has a multiplier, and it's usually a negative one. So you multiply it by 0 point something, which results in a lower number than the raw damage of the weapon. Essentially, only strong attacks get a positive multiplier for its own motion values, which the Great Sword gets plenty of. As for the hit zones, on the other hand, that's research on the hunter's part. You get a somewhat detailed diagram of every monster with zones and weaknesses, 2 elements and ailments, on your hunter's notes. Before we move on, a thing to keep in mind is that even if the hunter's notes describe a weak point, it's usually still a reduction in damage on your attacks. Every part of a monster typically lowers your damage on your attacks. Only those weak points lower your damage less than other parts. You can easily see this when the damage number you deal becomes orange when you hit a weak point, and turns white when you hit a hardened zone. This essentially explains how you go from having a 760 damage weapon to only dealing like 80 damage per hit or something like that. Ah, and the GS has a little unique mechanic that consists of strikes dealt in the middle of the blade that deal extra damage. This is also known as a sweet spot. Now it's time to address the big giant gamut in the room, the elemental damage. Some weapons get an element in their attacks which deals extra damage depending on your element and the monster's weakness to that specific element. If the bloated damage of every weapon differs, the elemental damage is always 0.1 of every weapon, so that means it's always a 10% of the damage shown. That means a 500 fire damage weapon is only 50 raw elemental damage. I will be swift and to the point. You do not care about element in your greatsword. The GS is a pure raw physical damage dealer. Basically how this works is that faster attacking weapons get the best deal on elemental damage as every hit only gets a small increase of elemental damage. So the more attacks you deal, the more elemental damage you dispense. The greatsword is a slow weapon that deals massive hits in few strikes, so it's a no-no. Team Darkseid made a video 6 years ago. Jesus, time flies fast in it. Of the highest damage it did in a single hit in world. And the video was made with the greatsword because it possessed the highest motion value of any weapon. The final number was 6451, and only 14 of that was elemental damage. That's how irrelevant the element on greatsword is. Finally, we can move on the meat of the video, the attacks. Oh, wait a minute. Yes, aha. Yes, I know. Yes. Oops, I forgot that. Just. Thanks. Bye. I'm informed that I've missed a teeny tiny thing that is the sharpness and affinity. But I will be quick, so don't worry. About the sharpness. It goes to red, to orange, to yellow, to green, to blue, to white, and finally to purple. Every level of sharpness reduces your ability to bounce on harder enemy parts, but also increases your damage dealt both physical and elemental, except on yellow where there is no change, and lower than that where it actually reduces your damage. In summary, the better sharpness, better everything. But sometimes it's better to have a weapon with worse sharpness but more raw damage, so keep that in mind. As for affinity, it's just a percentage of dealing a critical damage, 25%, extra to be precise. There are many skills that increases affinity and are very sort of. There is also a skill that increases the damage of critical strikes by 5%, so a 30% overall. Be aware that some weapons get negative affinity, which means there are a chance to deal 25% less damage. In short, the way you want to build your greatsword is by getting the highest raw damage and sharpness sword independently of negative affinity. Getting that affinity as close as 100% as you can, get the 30% critical damage and focus skills which reduces the time you spend charging attacks, which we will dive in shortly. I still haven't hunted all monsters, so I don't know every skill in the game, so I will probably make a separate video on the best pieces to build a set for the greatsword in Wilds. And the last thing before moving on to the moveset is that ailments are not as bad as element, because they are just extra effects on top of the damage. It will be a slower build up compared to the rest of the weapon, sure, but if it doesn't sacrifice raw damage or sharpness, having a weapon with blast or poison is just extra damage. Now finally we can get to the moveset, right? The GS is simple and has few moves, but we have a lot to talk about. I don't know the exact names in English, so I hope you understand me. Let's move on. By pressing triangle, you can do a downward slash. And this attack can be charged by holding the button. The charge has 3 levels, each level increases the motion values. Be aware that if you hold it for too long, you will overcharge the weapon, and will be the damage equal to a level 2 charge. The timing is practice and getting used to it. This is the meat and bones of the greatsword. The objective is to hit as many charge slashes as you can. Once you do the charge slash, you can press triangle again and do a strong charge slash, which has better motion values. You can press circle after a strong slash to do a special horizontal attack that has high motion values and big recovery time, so use it at your own discretion. The damage of the attack depends on the charge level of the strong slash. After that, you can continue the combo normally to get the big Mama Jama, the 2 charge slash, which has always been the attack with the highest motion values of any game until now. I think that title goes to a new attack of the hammer, but it still does tremendous damage. This attack is slow and difficult to land, but it's worth to go for it every time you can. If you hit the smaller attack first, the bigger one gets increased motion values, so it's important to know that. This attack is the one you will usually use to wake a monster up. In the past you used to roll away to hit the big one, but with the new focus mode mechanic is now a really easy thing to do. Speaking of focus mode, you activate it with L2, and this is your best friend. Your attacks are easier to aim and you will miss less 2 charge slashes. The next move is a horizontal attack with circle, which is not very used, but you can do it sometimes when you can do charge attacks. You can chain this attack with triangle and the next one I'm about to talk. You can also press circle to do a tackle while charging an attack, but the tackle will have its own section. And finally, the last of the basic attacks will be pressing triangle plus circle, and an upward slash. This attack used to be niche, and only used when the part of the monster you wanted to hit was very high up, but now this can be charged too. And not only it deals small damage, it also has a new cool mechanic where you can offset some monster attacks, like a kind of a parry, and do a special follow-up that hits pretty hard. You should study the monster's attack patterns and try to do this as many times as you can, but be careful that more of these attacks will be necessary to topple a monster the more you do it. The large size of the great sword is not only for compensation, it can also be used as a shield by pressing R2. This really lowers the damage you take but also lowers your sharpness meter unless you press it at the exact time as the incoming attack. This way you will take no damage whatsoever, and only lose a really low portion of your sharpness. Perfect blocking also readies your hunter for a quick counter attack. Perfect blocking also has a new unique mechanic on which you start a button mashing minigame with triangle against the monster, and if you win you deal a little bit of damage and some space, then you can attack from there. Not all attacks trigger this, and it's kind of difficult to pull off, but it's a nice thing to try, especially if you have offset a lot of attacks with the upward slash and the monster is getting very resilient to it. While blocking you can press triangle to do a kick, which is very useful in combat, however it's quick, and can be used to save fellow hunters from stuns, slips and other bad things. I have no footage of this because I mainly hunt solo, I have no friends. Pressing triangle again after that you do a tackle, and pressing triangle again will do a slap which has blunt damage. From there you can start a strong charge slash directly without doing the normal one, by pressing triangle once more, so it's a way to get the 2 charge slash faster. This can also be done after a roll. This is the big moment, the shoulder tackle moment. The best move that has ever been added for the greatsword. Yes, ever better than the true charge slash. The shoulder tackle can be done by pressing circle while charging any attack, after a roll, and by a natural string just by pressing circle as I previously mentioned. What's the deal with this attack, you might ask? It's very short range and deals next to no damage. The beauty of this attack is not its offensive capabilities, it's the fact that it gives you hyper armor while doing it. You can tank any attack with minimal damage, even monster roars. The only downside is that it can't power through grab attacks, and you can still get stunned by getting hit repeatedly, so you can just abuse it. Every time you do a tackle while charging, you skip a charge, so you can get the 2 charge slashed very fast. Use this to capitalize on downed monsters to get to the TCS as fast as possible. You can also press circle after a tackle to do a weak horizontal slash that launches you forward. This move is pretty interesting, as it can be used to position yourself during the fight without messing with the flow of the battle. You will do a slap if you keep pressing triangle, and finally a TCS. A small thing about the tackle is that, like the slap, does blunt damage and can stun monsters. You will practically never stun a monster with a normal build with just those 2 moves, but there are some fun sets that use punishing draw, which is a skill that makes your first draw attack deal blunt damage, to make a sort of hammer greatsword build. Before talking about the last topic, which will be in the playstyle and in the video, let's talk a little bit more about the focus mode. I already said that you should use it to aim your charge slashes, but there is a new final mechanic in Wilds, that are the wounds. By hitting a monster in roughly the same place, over and over you will create a wound. That part will get reduced defense, and that wound will close if you deal too much damage with normal attacks. But you can also close it instantly with a special attack, whilst in focus mode by pressing R1. The viability depends on every weapon, but in my experience the GS is very strong at that. It deals quite a bit of damage and you can start charging a TCS instantly. Be aware that monsters will not always topple or fall off, so you might get caught during the TCS charge. With all that information, now we will talk about how to use it in combat. In essence, you want to pester the monster constantly, not with fast and overwhelming amount of attacks, but brawling with charges and countering with tackles, offset parries and perfect blocks. Spatial awareness and monster knowledge is very important, so if you feel that you are doing badly at the beginning, it's normal, don't worry. The GS is an easy pick, hard to master type of weapon. In the past, the greatsword had an opportunistic playstyle where you unsheath your sword with a critical draw and focus. Did a big swing, run away and do it again on every monster opening. But now you can keep fighting the monster constantly, keeping the pressure. With the innate high damage of the sword, it's easy to lead the fight by staggering down and parrying the monster continuously, notably with the wound closing attacks. You can easily get on a circle of downing the monster, giving it a wound, wait it to get up, close a wound, down the monster again, do a TCS and keep pummeling the monster again and again. Let's do a list of the main points of the greatsword. Slow and high damage. No other weapons work like this, not even the hammer. Positioning and monster knowledge is key. Raw damage is top priority. Elemental damage is almost irrelevant. Ailments are a nice extra thing to have. High affinity and critical boost are important. This can be said for every weapon, to be honest. Focus is possibly the most important skill for GS. Brawling playstyle with counters and parries. Hard hitting strikes, easy to down a monster. Even with focus mode, it's easy to whiff some attacks, so no worries. I'm not an expert in the matter, but I've been using this weapon since I first saw it. I tried other weapons of course, but the GS has been my main weapon and nothing comes even close, so I think I have enough experience to do a video like this. Even though other people will have better and more detailed guides, I hope you like my own style. And if you got here, it would be incredible if you leave a like and a comment. It would mean the world for me. The Monster Hunter world, to be precise.